Welcome everyone to the HR Dialogues, a podcast where we talk about HR and the future of work. Analytics is a hot topic at the moment, and I think over the past couple of years, it's been something that we've been talking about a lot within the HR domain. How do we become more evidence-based? How can we utilize analytics and data to inform business decisions? Welcome to the HR Dialogues, where we learn from people practitioners as they navigate the emerging world of work. I'm joined by a very exciting guest, Raymond. Good day to you. Introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you and what do you do at EDLIGO?
Yeah. Hello, Dieter. Thank you for having me. My name is Raymond Lienaber. I'm EDLIGO's HR thought leader and HR consulting director. And in this role, I'm responsible for providing strategic guidance and innovative solutions to our clients in the field of human resources. That somehow, in a nutshell, will tell it. In EDLIGO, we're deeply looking into talent analytics and learning analytics and using lots of AI to revolutionize HR strategies and drive organizational and people change and organizational success as well. So I work closely with our clients to design tailored solutions that align perfectly with their business goals.
I think that's right up our alley, what we want to talk about today. Raymond, the past couple of years has really seen some significant shifts, I think, in HR. And, as the Academy to Innovate HR, we put out trends reports every year. And something that is consistent over the past couple of years is the importance of data, is the importance of evidence-based practices I mentioned earlier, and how we utilize people analytics and then now more specifically talent analytics that we are going to be talking about as part of the toolkit and the toolbox of the HR professional. Let's start with the basics. If I bump into you and I ask the question, Raymond, what is talent analytics? How can you define that for us?
Maybe if you ask three people, you get four answers, but for me, it's pretty obvious. Talent analytics to me, it's a process of using data and advanced AI, some kind of analytics techniques to gain insights into an organization's workforce, and how they're working and methods and processes. So this involves you collect information, you analyze it, interpret data related to the employees, about skills, performance, engagement, potential.
A couple of key things I hear there. I think the first one is there's a strategic role that it plays. So it is about, and I like the terminology you used about, smuggling it in to be aligned to what the organization wants to achieve. Definitely the link to organizational success. And then I think a big important thing that I would like to deep dive into a little bit more is analytics is actually a very broad field in the HR space. It's not only one thing. There's a whole bunch of different elements that will play into that. Raymond, maybe for us to dive into that a bit more, why is analytics important now in today's world of work? What have you seen change over the last couple of years that makes analytics a hot topic at the moment?
First, it will provide HR professionals and the business leaders, with information, with objective and evidence-based information about their workforce. They didn't have this before. Before you have gut feels. Now you have information at hand. And by leveraging this data, the organizations and the managers and the HR organization, and even the people themselves, they can move away from just relying solely on this intuition or subjective judgment when making critical HR decisions. And these subjective judgments, they brought people very often actually into conflict, into dangerous situations, legal problem situations. There's another item I can think of. Talent analytics show organizations to identify different patterns, trends, and correlations with the employee data. And through those insights, they will be enabled to make more informed decisions regarding talent acquisition, talent development, performance management, and employee engagement, definitely as well. Yes.
Raymond, share a couple of stories with us. What has been some of the interesting insights that analytics has brought to you that you would not have known if you didn't have the analytics available?
For just a recent example, working with a very large client, we have actually started doing competence modeling with them. We have started to allow the employees then to do all their self-evaluation. So we get a big bunch of data, for a couple of thousand employees. And then we show the report. So you have patterns of trouble here. Your competence models that you have been using or deploying in the past is not able to continue to work in the long run because you're not helping people to excellence. We all know the book From Good to Great, but
Mm,
I tell them, reading the book alone doesn't make you great, but you have to help your employees as well and find out how to make them great and how to even then take them to the next level to excellence. And so these were a lot of eye openers through the data that we have been using and digging in with them. And they're really glad and they say, wow.
mm. Raymond, I'd love to know because, talking from my own personal experience, I know when you start shifting towards using more evidence based approaches and starting to bring a lot more data, especially into the executive boardroom, initially there is a bit of of resistance, and it's for different reasons, right? There's resistance; people don't understand what you're bringing. Sometimes the method and the way that we bring it into the boardroom is not necessarily leading the conversation and answering the right questions. How do you overcome that? If I want to get going on this journey, how do I get that business buy-in into analytics?
We have to really get all the stakeholders on all the different stakeholders on board. We have to identify them first, and we have to tell them, look, we don't try to tap on your toes.
Mm,
So we want to help you, and we want to help you all to drive your business more successful. When you come and start to do analytics, there are going to be findings, and you have to be ready to accept as well the results that these findings are telling you, and you can look at them and say, oh yeah, the results are like X. And then you have to as well understand there have to be consequences,
mm,
and people otherwise don't even start this journey. If you're not ready to look at the results and then to make decisions based on these results, because that's the whole thing why they're doing this. It's an investment for the better, for the good.
mm,
So, and this is how I try to tell us. Of course, we do this carefully as well. We don't go and say, well, your past things has been all bad. No, it has been good. Maybe it has been good until that day, but then reality has changed. For instance, another client told me that they had trouble, for instance, in getting new people trained because due to the corona, they have lost a lot of employees and they have
mm,
lost the competence and they have lost training capability due to that. New ways of approach, new ways of looking at solutions, and talent analytics helps to discover gaps and helps us as well to point everyone to those gaps, the managers, the employees, and the business itself, and then helps them as well to close these gaps.
mm.
And they have to take these activities. Otherwise, just staring at data doesn't make it better in the future. You can run the same reports. It's going to run the same. If you don't take action on it, it's not going to improve anything.
Yeah, I can share a personal anecdote. I was in an organization where um, there was almost a so what factor that I think kind of was really a bit of a barrier for us because people would look at the data and say, that's really interesting. Next agenda item. Yeah, almost,
Yeah.
I think that consequence piece around data is about movement and it is about taking action. It is about helping people to inform what that next step is going to be is such an important thing to remember because I think as HR professionals, we sometimes get so stuck in where does the data come from? What can I use it for? And I think, Raymond, that points me towards something I would love your insight on is how do we ask the right questions? Because it sounds as if that's a really important thing to get right as part of your analytics journey.
We all know that there are sometimes some statistics, some formulas,
Mm,
some points where you can start, and then you may start actually digging deeper. So I believe, like as we're coming here from the competence side, at
mm,
Lego, we're very strong on competence. We are partnering with other bodies that have competence models. They are available. We have our own competence models too, and this is what we try to introduce, and then we compare because many companies. Are concerned that they may have been too much cooking in their own juice
mm-hmm.
and they don't have very little outside in view.
Yeah.
So many companies, what we see, they want to have the questions from the outside, like, is this still good what we're doing?
Mm,
And to start with this. So we're looking at some kind of international standards, international standardization, and there's a lot available that we can use, and there is well a lot of KPIs available, that people can look at when they're looking at statistics.
we miss that sometimes. It's the question is not always about what is going wrong. The question is also about what is going right and where are we good
Yes.
and what is it that we need to build. Because I think analytics is a journey around with this new insight and with this new information that I've got available is to say what that next step is that I would like to take. I want to bring us back towards the utilization of analytics in determining competence. There's a lot of views out there in terms of competency models and what does that look like. Something that I really agree with that you mentioned. It's
Mm.
important to look inside and outside. It doesn't help you don't have a perspective of how do you compare to market and what are those evolutions look like. How do you approach helping organizations to understand their competence?
So what we do when we go to a company, when we go to an organization and they want to start doing learning or talent analytics, we will ask them first, do you have a competence model?
Mm,
Do you have, what kind of competences do you have? Can we use that, what you have? If you think then, and as an organization believe that your good definition here is still good, maybe you have as well forgotten maybe, or you got too much into the comfort zone that your good is actually already substandard in the
mm,
market, so maybe you want to have this comparison, and this is how we then working with organizations, and then we're looking at the competence models, identify as well what kind of learning interventions would be required for that to move people from, let's say, from level 1 to level 2 to
yeah.
level 3, 4, 5, to allow people to progress, and to visibly progress, because progression does not always have to mean like you go from one role to move to the next role, that it's really like has to be a promotion. As I'm coming from HR, I know as well a lot.
Mm.
It is very important that people can as well move horizontally in an organization before they're actually really moving up, because the diversification of knowledge is that just grows the seniority into people.
I think there's also movement in the career space and in the internal mobility space at the moment that
Sure.
there is about, what are my transferable skills and where can I go and apply it elsewhere? It's not necessarily in a linear move.
Absolutely.
I know some people are talking about things like squiggly careers and they're talking about careers between different organizations, which I think is a real positive movement
Mm.
in the whole talent management space and what talent pools look like in future. Raymond, I want to talk a bit about, so you help an organization with understanding this is what good looks like, or, they've got something in place and you help them compare that to say, against international standards, here's certain gaps
Mm.
or here's certain areas where you're really, delivering on that particular promise. How do we bring that back to business impact? How do we bring that back to say, is that actually translating into business performance or into individual performance?
It's not just looking at the data and staring at it, it's as well that it has to tell you something. And then it becomes very interesting if you can correlate as well, for instance, business results or
Mm,
business performance with the learning. And then what we can do, and we really identify actually here, which competence helped most actually to grow business,
mm,
and that is where the AI will look at this and looks at patterns and does all its searching, its crawling, and it's really fantastic to see like that we get recommendations through the system. For instance, that a competence A is something that has helped us to actually increase maybe in profitability or anything. And this is really valuable information that we get back, from
mm,
the system. And therefore, on the competence side, the HR or people can um, induce more learning on a particular competence on something, because it will tell us as well, or it can tell us, well, in case you develop more people with this or that competence, you may have a high probability to actually further have increments in profits or in turnover or in whatever makes your business.
mm.
So this is very smart business information that you get out from there.
No, I agree. I think, that changes the whole perspective on why are we looking at the analytics and why do we need to invest in building, certain competencies. Raymond, take us through a bit of an example, working with either a client or an organization that was something that surprised you from the analytics space. And what I want to try to get to is to say, what were some of those non-obvious things that you started picking up working with the client over time and as they started to mature in their analytics journey?
You find pockets of greatness
Mm-hmm.
where they were not expected at all,
Yeah.
So where you see these people are all bollocks, they're not really doing a great job or whatever, but we actually can see that these guys are smart, they have the knowledge, but something was missing in their surroundings. I don't know exactly anymore what it was, but something was missing, someone to help them to really thrive, you know.
Mm.
And once we've identified this and this was corrected, they really delivered superb results, you know. On the other thing was to, when we're looking at this kind of predictive analytics, that we were, although a project was running well, we were forecasting that this is going to hit the wall.
Mm.
And they all were actually, one didn't want to believe, you know, as you said, well, let's look at the numbers, everything looks fine, we continue as business as it is. And it took only 2 months. The
Mm.
customer complaints came in.
No.
Yeah, and then everyone was like, "Who? What are we going to do?" So this has been eye openers that to me that these things work actually,
Mm.
you know.
Mm.
So and it's not, and so that's why demystifying AI is what we really can do based on the real examples and real success stories, you know. And it really helps. It
Mm.
really does. It really does, you know. And it requires, of course, that in organizations we need to have, we call it in Germany, we would say these aha experiences, you know. The coin has to drop, you know.
Sure.
So the coin dropping experience, you know, that has to happen sometimes, you know.
Mm.
And because, as you said earlier, there's a lot of skepticism
Mm.
related to this. No, it's just trendy, and you know, and the real application, the real use case, and the real success story uh, has to be investigated for each organization.
Mm.
It's not that you cannot say it's like the same for every organization because no company is alike.
Yeah. Mm. What I hear from you as well is, the first thing is context matters. As you've mentioned, no
Sure.
organization is exactly alike, and I think it is sometimes a fact that we neglect because we're looking for what is that silver bullet tool or approach that's going to help us move forward. And I think context does play a critical role there.
Yes.
I definitely also hear from you to say that it's broader than only the HR space, because what I love about your examples is you continuously talk about what is the business performance, the business impact, what's the impact on the customer, what was the impact on the rest of the organization. And I think that's such an important point, because even human capital data in isolation is a limited view of what's really happening in the organization. And it sounds to me as if you are able to connect that, across these different, can I call them
Sure.
functional silos over time. Um, what is the challenge there, Raymond? Because when you go into an organization, you have to work with various stakeholders across these different divisions. And I can share a story from, my previous life, where we had a pretty advanced people analytics team, but what we were struggling with was other data sources to be able to understand what really is that aha moment in terms of the so what. If we do these things well, what is that so what going to look like? So what advice would you give to HR professionals that's wanting to mature their analytics practice and need to start working with other stakeholders?
Start with clear objectives, you know, clearly define where you want to go, what is the objective or desired outcome of talent analytics or whatever analytics you want to do of this journey or initiative, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Identify key questions or challenges that they want to address through data analysis, you know, so that they know sometimes what am I expecting. And this, even when you have data analytics already present, you know, you and people will start, managers will start loving it when they look at reports. They will get really hungry. They will go to your teams, to your analytics teams, and come with a hunch of something that they expect from data. But you will see it's a whole journey actually until the report is really ready based from
Mm-hmm.
the initial idea that they've had in their mind, you know. So therefore it is very important to make sure, as I believe, garbage in, garbage out, that you
Sure.
have to invest in your data quality and the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Very important, you know, and data priority uh, is a must, has to be prioritized, because if the reports or the analytics are not really um, robust enough, you know,
Mm.
and people may scrutinize it and say it's all not really true what you're showing us there, then this lost trust
Mm.
and this lost goodwill is very hard to get back. And also ensure always, all the HR professionals, please ensure that you have accurate, complete, reliable data to get to meaningful insights. I think that's very important here, you know. And then this analytical expertise has to be developed.
Mm.
We don't have it in the blood. It's
Yeah.
not in our genes. How many years are we talking about analytics anyway? So it's something new, and as HR professionals, we cannot expect this analytical expertise across the board of our HR teams or those
Mm-hmm.
people that we engage with this, even among the managers. So it's really an educational journey as well.
Mm.
So we need to invest in building or acquiring that analytical expertise into our teams, into the organization, and we will see it's slowly growing.
Mm.
And another thing is, don't try to do things alone. As a
Yeah.
HR, you have to work with your business stakeholders, collaborate there, get them on board. It's not like a nice new fancy HR topic only. So, and I see in many occasions that the CHRO is being let's say, get the ideas of looking more at talent analytics or getting more encouraged through CEOs, also through finance officers.
Mm.
So because they really say, hey, is there something more that we can get out of it? And HR has sometimes shied away a little bit more from this.
Mm.
And so, yes, this collaboration with the business stakeholders is very important. And then HR should actually, with the business, really take the lead there. And one last thing I may want to say is, make sure that you have a very ethical and responsible use of the data.
Mm.
Because here as well, the people are really sometimes really opening up, and there should be never any kind of sort of retaliations. We have legal requirements as well, how big any kind of cohorts or groups have to be that we can see results. We don't have the same kind of standards maybe in every country as we're providing internationally, but I think here on our side as well, we always try to recommend to the client on selling it as well to employees, to workers' council, and others, that this is there to help,
Yeah.
and to help us to sustain and to get to this, to develop a collective advantage within our organization, compared to competition.
Mm. You've mentioned a couple of really important points. If there's no trust in your organizational system, then people will always ask the question. And I think especially in modern days where, there's so many data points about so many things. A lot of organizations are absolutely obsessed with productivity at the moment. And it's almost as if the fact that the workforce is changing, it's as if they believe that people have forgotten how to be productive. And now I want metrics and I want to monitor that. And that is sometimes,
True.
impacting the employer-employee relationship and what trust really looks like, between those different parties. So the point that you made around transparency about why are we collecting data, it is to sustain, it is to help, it is to inform, and it is to guide beyond just the privacy concerns and the legal concerns. But it's almost that debate with the organization and with employees to say, this isn't something to fear. I want to take you back years and years and years when people just started working online. You had a little green icon that popped up that said whether you were online or not, and the number of things that employees did to try and kind of bypass, getting it on but not really working. I think
True.
that's such a terrible thing to have in your culture if employees feel that that's type of way that you are kind of looking at any data that they produce from their side in terms of productivity. So
True.
the second thing you mentioned, which I want to dive into a bit more, is it goes beyond just, and it is a journey for a lot of us in HR to really start moving in that type of direction. Something that we found at the Academy that goes beyond only the data and the analytics skill set is almost the storytelling skill set that goes with it. To be able to say, but what is the story that the data is telling me, and how can I connect that to the questions that the business is asking? And the third point I want to dive into is really around the fact that you have to collaborate with others. And I think your advice on working with finance, working with operations is extremely, extremely useful, because you will also get an idea of how do they relay quite complex data and information into conversations. So first one, there some views, Raymond, from your side on how do we do this in a way that data actually builds trust between the employer and the employee? What are some of those things that we need to think about when we are on an analytics journey?
Yeah, how to build trust. I mean, one thing is the transparency. That's what you mentioned. Transparency is always very, very important. It has to be upheld. Then you need to, like, especially in Europe, you need to have the setup. You need to really ask the employees. They have to make their clicks by right. You're not allowed to, and you shouldn't actually start to capture data secretly. And do all the wrongs that we could imagine, and it's going to be very costly as well. But not only because of that, because people will just refrain from using it and from honestly answering if they see this being abused. And it's enough if it's being abused once. As I said, we say, trust is lost so quickly, and it's very hard to regain it. And the ethical usage, therefore, and handling of data, the processes have to be there. Legal requirements have to be fulfilled. In Germany, you will have to talk as well to workers' councils. I'm sure in many other countries there is alike, And then let's say the strongest or the strictest standard for global operation should be the standard for the company. So that would be my recommendation, always, because then you just don't have any questions asked or would treat people different in other country. Everybody's treated on the same level with the data, with the exposure towards that, and as well on the consequences, on the benefits that the data provides to them. So this would be my approach on the ethical and responsible use of the data.
Somebody once mentioned to me, and it's something that's stuck with me, is to say, remember, everything that is how does the saying go? Everything that is legal is not always ethical, and everything that is ethical is not always legal. You almost have to look at both those different angles to say it's not only what the legality is, but it is about what is the right thing to do in this situation that also serves the greater good. So what I mean by that is a lot of the things that you've mentioned, get the processes and things in place. Yes, there's a legal requirement there, but there's also an ethical requirement that goes beyond that says, but how are we infusing and using the data for good to the benefit of employees and the organization? Raymond, your second point you made was around the storytelling component. So how do I develop that as an HR professional?
Well, that's not always easy, but a very important thing, actually, because when we look at the data, and there are many people that really love their data, they love their graphs, they like to show this reference and that reference, and they make it, a heck of complicated sometimes looking at the data. So we have to try to use the data to actually simplify. And we have sometimes seen reports, you look at it and you're overwhelmed. And if you put too much of information there, you will not get there where you want it to go. So this is one of my main findings, is always like, try to reduce, have a focus, and make it, and try to present it in a very simple way, that everyone understands it and have a clear message. What do you really actually? I think this is for any kind of presentation. If you want data, whatever, if ever you want to get something from the board, have a clear understanding what you want, formulate it very concise, and make it easy for them to understand what you want, and what is going to be the impact if I do this, so there is a benefit for them right away. And benefits, all boards understand, and they love benefits.
No, definitely. Somebody once mentioned to me, they said, remember, it's not about what you want to tell them, it's more about what they want to know. And to take that as a bit of a guideline, because I agree, I've picked up a couple of people packs or people executive packs, and then you look at it and, you can write a book about everything that is really in there. Raymond, let's go one level down. You've mentioned earlier that a lot of value also lies in maturing the analytics capability for managers. How do we simplify that from an analytics point of view in terms of giving them some insights that is practical and usable for them in their own teams or within their? What has been your approach to do something like that?
The manager as well needs to be ready to look at the data, understand it. As an HR or as a analytics person, I have to be able to explain it to the manager. What do we see here? What do we believe this actually means? Helping the manager to understand, and if we can as well, provide a recommendation of something. Sometimes maybe the system and an AI may be able to recommend already something. The more data the AI has, the better it will be able to give useful recommendation. So the data could identify, where do I have pockets of potential attrition? Where do I have pockets of lack of competence? Where do I have actually my superheroes that I should rather promote? So there are a lot of information that you can gather from this, and where the managers together with their HR or business partners, have to look at it, understand it, and then take action for, I call it, remedy,
Yeah.
So,
Well, I definitely agree with the fact, Raymond, that we need to simplify what it is that we are showcasing, and we need to showcase what the action is that we can take based upon that. To share a story, we were in an organization where we started pushing out analytics reports about people teams to line managers, because we felt that the impact was going to be really great over time, if they are equipped and enabled. And we found after time that the adoption was actually really, really low, and it was due to a variety of things. The data was too complex. Two, it wasn't necessarily speaking to things that they were interested in. And the third one is they didn't really know what to do with it. And I think that
yeah.
was such a big learning for me around the fact to say, go with less, make it actionable, and then build that confidence into it. So it almost comes down to the point of building curiosity in the organization, getting them curious about asking questions and what is
Mm.
next. And if I do this, is that not something that we can also utilize data to inform that decision on? And I think that's a good approach for a lot of people just to consider, especially when dealing with an environment that is not used to analytics or used to these types of things, and these types of elements.
As I said earlier, this analytics area, it's new. It's new to the managers. It's well new to HR. So we all have to gauge the temperature
Mm,
on figuring out as well how much does this manager that I present this to know, and can I expect the same of every manager? Most likely not.
mm,
So and they're the HR business partners are just really have a very big job actually on taking the guys on hand, taking the managers on hand, and helping them to understand the reports, really grasp what does it mean,
mm,
what does it mean for my team, as well grasping ideas or considering ideas of what can I really do better, or what kind of better results would I have if I turn this or that, if
mm,
I improve this or that, or if I change this or that.
mm.
And that's where we create and generate the impact through this.
There's also for me a point that you've made that I think we don't spend enough time on, and that is, what is the role of the HR business partner in an analytics journey? Because I do think that some business partners get caught up in, I'm here to explain the data to you, versus I'm actually here to partner with you, and let's think about the insights and what we can do about this. And on the one side, it is a little bit around what does the analytics product look like that we build, and then on the other side, it is also around the confidence that the HR business partner needs to gain over time in order to work with data and work with analytics and build trust with the stakeholder.
Mm.
Raymond, before we start wrapping up, my last question, you referred to, work with the COO, work with the CFO, etc. Who are those key stakeholders that I can rally that is going to support me on my talent and people analytics journey in the organization?
Non-negotiable stakeholders, So I think if you install a system, you need to know the guys working with IT.
Mm,
So IT is very, very important there. HR is going to be a very important stakeholder. Then you have business leaders. They're
mm,
very important, of course. And someone has basically initiated the whole discussion and believes that this will help the organization. So there are a lot of people to partner with. And but of course, you start with a small group. You need preparation. You need to have your competence teams. If the organization has competence managers, for instance, so because you need to verify the competence models, and coming back to what makes good, and when does great start, and do we have process to review this every year?
mm,
Because requirements change, and we talked about that. So this is where I would start,
mm,
and you need to have LAs in the organization actually
mm.
to do this journey,
Yeah.
and especially as it could be change resistance,
Mm,
and so non-negotiable there will be that we can just say, look, we need to have all these connections for good data, so quality data. We need to have clear objectives and alignment about all those people there, and we have the good integration in the HR and business process area and the people around this. That's very important. And don't forget legal.
And I think in the almost the era of uncertainty that we are quite in, with big changes coming in terms of technology, the way that humans interact with work and with business and new type of work models, I definitely think analytics can be a bit of a guiding steer that helps us to understand what are some of those things that we do need to do. And I really appreciate the fact that you've mentioned it is a collaborative effort. It's
Yes.
not a journey you walk alone. It's a journey that you definitely have to walk with others as well. Raymond, on that note, I can't believe the time has already flown, but maybe a couple of things that really stood out for me from our conversation, then I'm going to ask you just to wrap up from your point of view as well. The first one is that it's important that analytics forms part of the toolkit of the HR professional, but we need some more skills in order to be able to understand what does that mean. I love the fact that you spoke about that say it's not just about what is broken, but it's also about what is going well. How can we verify that, and how can we really lead towards that notion of what does excellence look like for us within the organization? You spoke towards some of the barriers that we still find: data quality, getting people on board over time, and making sure that we comply with both the legal and the ethical side of the conversation, that we do need to get those things in place. And the last point for me was really this thing that you cannot walk alone. This is not a journey that you undertake completely on your own. There's a whole bunch of stakeholders you need to get on board, you need to educate, and you need to enable if you're going to have a successful analytics journey into the future. Raymond, from my side, a very big thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and the interesting work that you are doing at EDLIGO. Any last words from your side?
Well, but thank you very much, Dieter. It was great to be here, to share my views, and I hope we grow the data analytics community with this and with your initiatives here and with ours, and get more people and create greater understanding why this actually will help all of us. I always I said again, WIFM, there's a lot in it for everyone.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Raymond. To everybody listening, until next time, we will see you again on the HR Dialogues. Have a good day.